The death penalty has long been a subject of intense debate, touching on the core of human morality, justice, and the value of life. Is it a fitting punishment for those who commit heinous crimes, or does it violate the sanctity of human life, regardless of the offense? Across the globe, nations have grappled with these questions, leading some to abolish capital punishment entirely, while others, like Vietnam, retain it in more humane forms, such as lethal injection. However, the history of execution is far from humane. Throughout the ages, societies have devised methods of punishment that were not only designed to end life, but also to inflict maximum pain and humiliation. From the brazen bull of ancient Greece to the lingering death of Lingqi in China and the gruesome boat execution in Persia, these methods reveal a darker side of human ingenuity. This essay explores the ethical dilemmas surrounding the death penalty and delves into the chilling history of execution methods that have left an indelible mark on our collective conscience. The debate over the death penalty is rooted in conflicting principles: justice versus mercy, retribution versus redemption. Proponents argue that certain crimes, murder, treason, or acts of extreme cruelty, are so egregious that the only appropriate response is the ultimate punishment. The death penalty, they claim, serves as both retribution for victims and a deterrent to future crimes. In countries like Vietnam, where lethal injection is used, the process is clinical, swift, and intended to minimize suffering. Yet even in its modern form, the death penalty raises questions about whether any society has the moral authority to take a life. Opponents argue that life is sacred, and no crime, however horrific, justifies the deliberate act of killing another human being. They point to the risk of executing the innocent, the disproportionate impact on marginalized groups, and the lack of conclusive evidence that the death penalty deters crime more effectively than life imprisonment. Historically, executions were not merely about ending life but about making a spectacle of suffering. One of the most infamous methods was the brazen bull, devised around 550 BCE for the tyrant Phalaris of Akragas. Phalaris, known for his cruelty and rumored cannibalism, was presented with a hollow bronze bull by the craftsman Perillus. Victims were locked inside, and a fire was lit beneath, roasting them alive. The bull's design amplified their screams into eerie, melodic sounds, a perverse entertainment for the tyrant. Ironically, Phalaris found Perillus's creation so grotesque that he tested it on the craftsman himself, though he later spared him from complete incineration, only to have him thrown off a cliff. The brazen bull became a symbol of Phalaris's reign, used to terrorize his subjects until his eventual overthrow, when he reportedly met his end inside his own device. This method, though rare, underscores the lengths to which ancient societies went to combine punishment with psychological terror. Equally horrifying was Lingqi, or death by 1,000 cuts, originating in China and adopted in neighboring regions. Like Vietnam, Lingqi was reserved for the gravest offenses, such as treason or familial murder. Victims were tied to a post in a public square, where an executioner methodically sliced off pieces of flesh, starting with the limbs and progressing to the torso. The process could involve hundreds or even thousands of cuts, prolonging the victim's agony. In some cases, opium was administered to dull the pain, or the victim's throat was slit first for lesser crimes. Beyond physical torment, Lingqi carried spiritual weight. A mutilated body was believed to prevent the soul from finding peace, adding an existential layer of punishment. By the Qing dynasty's ban in 1905, Lingqi had become a relic of a brutal past, but its legacy persists in historical accounts, such as the 1835 execution of Saint Joseph in Vietnam. Perhaps the most macabre execution method was the Persian scaphism, or the boats. Victims were trapped between two boats with only their head, hands, and feet exposed. They were force-fed milk and honey until they vomited, and their bodies were coated in the sweet mixture. Left afloat on a river under the scorching sun, they succumbed to heat stroke, dehydration, and the relentless assault of insects drawn to the honey and their excrement. The process could last weeks, with victims devoured alive by vermin. While some historians question scaphism's authenticity, due to sparse records, its vivid description in ancient texts speaks to humanity's capacity for cruelty. Whether real or exaggerated, it reflects a desire to dehumanize the condemned, reducing them to objects of horror. These historical methods contrast sharply with modern execution practices, which prioritize efficiency and minimal suffering. Yet, the ethical questions remain unchanged. Can justice ever require the taking of a life? Do such punishments reflect the values of a civilized society, or do they perpetuate a cycle of violence? The abolition of torturous executions is a step toward humanity, but the death penalty itself continues to divide us, forcing us to confront our beliefs about retribution, forgiveness, and the essence of justice. The death penalty, and its historical manifestations from the brazen bull to scaphism, remind us of humanity's complex relationship with justice and cruelty. While modern societies have largely abandoned the barbaric spectacles of the past, the question of whether we have the right to take a life persists. Each method, no matter how gruesome, was once justified as a necessary response to crime, just as some defend capital punishment today. As we reflect on these practices, we are challenged to consider what it means to be just, compassionate, and human. The stories of the past, however horrifying, urge us to strive for a future where justice does not come at the cost of our shared humanity. Let us continue this conversation, not with fear or vengeance, but with a commitment to understanding and progress.